Hey there, deep divers. We're going to be diving into something today that I think we all think about.
Okay.
What does it really mean to be an adult?
Oh, yeah. Big question, right? It's funny how there's so many different answers depending on, culture
Yeah.
or even just like your own personal experience.
Yeah. And to get some different perspectives on this, I have a really interesting mix of sources for this deep dive.
Okay, cool.
So first up, we have a popular English learning channel on YouTube, and it features a married couple, Vanessa and Dan.
Okay.
They talk about all sorts of topics, and they had a great conversation about this whole adulthood question.
Uh-huh.
And then we also dug into another channel that's got tips for improving English skills.
Hmm.
And there were some surprisingly relevant insights in there about routines and life goals.
It's interesting how you can pull from all sorts of different places
Oh,
to
right.
find connections
Yeah.
to these bigger questions,
Yeah.
right?
So Vanessa and Dan, in their video, they kind of kicked it off with a pretty simple question. When does childhood end and adulthood begin?
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Gets right to the point.
And Dan's initial response was really young. He said 16.
Wow, really?
I know, but his thinking wasn't about, recklessness or anything. He was actually talking about self-sufficiency. Like the idea that in a perfect world, maybe 16-year-olds should be equipped to, live independently,
Yeah.
manage their own affairs, make their own choices.
It's interesting because it brings up the question of like, in an ideal world versus like the reality of
Yeah.
how prepared people are at that age.
And even Dan admitted that, that's not how it actually works in most societies.
Yeah.
And he even said he wasn't ready at 16.
Yeah, it's a big expectation for someone that age for sure.
Yeah, so it's kind of this ideal versus reality thing.
Totally.
And then Vanessa kind of brought up another angle, and she was suggesting that maybe it's less about age and more about decision-making.
Okay.
So like when you start making choices that have real lasting consequences, that's maybe a sign you're stepping into adulthood.
Yeah, I can see that.
What do you think? Should there be like an event or an age that we mark,
Mhm.
like a rite of passage?
It's interesting because some cultures do have that right.
Yeah.
Like very clear markers of adulthood.
Right.
But in other places, it's just kind of like you wake up one day and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I guess I'm an adult now.
Totally. And then Dan also brought up how certain life events can kind of force you into adulthood,
Right.
ready or not.
Yeah, like what kind of things?
Like having kids.
Yeah.
He talked about how becoming a parent really pushes you to grow up quickly, to be more responsible, less self-centered.
It definitely shifts your priorities.
Yeah. And he even contrasted that with activities that some people might see as childish, like video games.
Right, right.
It's not that he's judging people who play video games,
Yeah, it's not a value judgment.
but it's just sort of this interesting,
Like how our responsibilities shape
yeah,
how we behave.
totally. Okay,
Yeah.
let's switch gears a little bit. Dan talked about some of his early job experiences, and let me tell you, he had some rough ones.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What did he do? So he actually had two strong contenders for worst job ever.
Yeah.
And they were totally different from each other.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which one stuck out to you when you were reading through it?
I think the one that I remember most vividly was the dishwashing job at the Italian restaurant.
Me too.
Yeah.
He was 16, homeschooled, and suddenly thrown into this crazy world of clanging dishes. And
Total chaos.
I know he described the mucky water and cutting his finger on a broken glass.
Oh, no.
And then constantly being teased for being slow.
Oh, God.
Someone even told him he had two speeds,
Yeah.
slow and stop.
It's like a classic first job story, though, right?
Totally.
Like almost everyone has that first job
Right.
that's awful that
Yeah.
teaches you about hard work.
Exactly.
How to be resilient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then his other worst job takes the cake for just pure absurdity.
Okay, what was that one?
He was selling security systems door to door,
Okay. Yeah.
but the company was using technology that was 30 years old.
Oh, no.
I know.
That's tough.
Just so outdated.
Yeah, it makes you think about how technology impacts the job market and how things change so rapidly.
Yeah. What might have been a viable career a few decades ago is completely obsolete now.
Totally.
And it's not just about jobs disappearing, but it's also the skills you need to thrive in a world that's constantly changing.
Right. Adaptability is key.
Yeah. So it makes you think how does that concept of adulthood need to be redefined
Right.
in the context of rapid technological advancements?
Yeah. What do you think is the most important skill or quality
Yeah.
for navigating adulthood in this digital age?
That is a great question. And actually, it ties into something we found in that other channel with the tips for English.
Okay.
They had this really insightful bit about creating a daily routine that supports learning.
Yeah, routines are so important.
I know. And it was specifically for language learning, but I was thinking about it. I was like,
it applies to anything.
yeah. It's really about just creating structure.
Right. Structure, consistency.
Yeah, consistency. Yeah.
Building those good habits.
Yeah. And one of the tips that they had was to incorporate some form of English content into your day every day.
Every day.
Every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Like even just listening to a podcast while you're commuting or reading a few pages of a book before bed.
Little things add up. Right.
Exactly. And they even talked about watching videos about sailing.
Okay.
And I thought that was so interesting.
Interesting.
Because it's like...
you can find English content about anything these days.
Anything. And you can learn.
Yeah.
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 But they also emphasize that it goes beyond just like passively consuming the content.
Right.
They also encouraged writing in English every day.
Interesting.
Even if it's just like jotting down thoughts or summarizing something you learn.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. It's just that like putting your thoughts into words in another language can really solidify your understanding. Yeah. And then the last tip that they had, which I thought was really interesting, was to join online communities.
Okay.
Which can be a fantastic way to like practice your communication skills.
Right.
And interact with native speakers.
Real world application.
Yes. So those were the 3 key tips. Daily content.
Okay.
Daily writing. And daily interaction.
Got it.
Seems manageable.
Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't seem too overwhelming.
If you just break it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest takeaway from those tips?
I think it's that emphasis on active learning, right?
Right.
Like finding ways to integrate language practice into your life.
Into your daily life, yeah.
Yeah. Instead of it being this like separate thing that you study, it's like making it a part of who you are.
I love that. All right, so let's hear about Dan and Vanessa's thoughts on adulthood and kind of what they had to say about like their dream destinations and their ideal homes.
All right, let's get into it.
Because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it reveals a lot about their personalities.
Yeah, I'm always curious to hear about people's travel dreams.
Yeah, me too. So where does Dan want to go?
So Dan's all about those like epic natural wonders.
Yeah.
He wants to see the Grand Canyon.
Oh, wow.
He's just really drawn to that like vastness.
Yeah, he definitely seems like the adventurous type.
Yeah, for sure.
Anywhere else on his list?
He also mentioned the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
Specifically Seattle.
Cool. Very different vibe.
Very different, yeah.
Totally.
But still surrounded by nature.
Yeah.
And then he also threw in Quebec City.
Oh.
And I think that's probably because Vanessa speaks French.
Oh, that makes sense.
And he would love to practice.
Yeah, I love that. It's not just about seeing the place, but it's like immersing himself in a different culture.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about Vanessa? Where does she want to go?
So Vanessa's dream is to go to Yosemite National Park.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful spot. But there's a bit of a time crunch because they're expecting a baby soon.
Oh, but yeah.
So she's kind of putting those travel plans on hold for a little bit.
Yeah. Yosemite's definitely a place you want to have like time and energy to appreciate.
Totally.
It's so funny how life stages impact travel goals.
Yeah, definitely.
There are things that you maybe would have prioritized before having kids.
Yeah.
Maybe you're less appealing now or require more logistical planning.
Way more planning.
I know. All right, so let's hear about these dream homes.
Okay.
They both have some pretty specific ideas about their ideal living spaces.
Yeah.
And I think it really says a lot about their personalities.
Yeah, I'm curious what Dan's mansion looks like.
Okay, so Dan, unsurprisingly, dreams of a mansion.
Okay.
And not just any mansion.
A modest little cottage.
It's a cliffside mansion overlooking the Mediterranean Sea.
Wow. Okay.
I know, big views, big spaces. It's very Dan.
Very Dan.
He even mentioned needing a giant game room, which he'd have to keep locked to avoid distractions.
I love that.
So Dan right.
Yeah, it's interesting how our dream homes often reflect our aspirations, right?
Oh.
Like how we see ourselves fitting into the world.
Yeah, what about Vanessa? What's her ideal living setup?
So Vanessa's is a bit more grounded.
Okay.
She wants stunning mountain views.
Beautiful.
But she also wants to be able to easily get to the city.
Oh, okay. So she's practical.
Practical, yeah. And she needs a dedicated home filming studio.
Of course, for the YouTube channel.
Yes.
It's like their dream homes reflect their work-life balance goals, too.
Totally. It makes you think about your own ideal work-life balance.
Right.
Like, do you see your home as a sanctuary from work?
Yeah.
Or do you prefer a more integrated approach?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, speaking of home, let's talk about what's cooking. It turns out they both share a love of chili. Chili.
I love chili.
And I thought that was so funny.
It's a very practical meal.
Yeah, it's hearty. It's make-ahead.
Yeah.
It's perfect for busy weeknights or lazy weekends.
I'm sensing a theme of practicality.
They even pointed out that they're not chefs and they don't have fancy equipment.
Yeah, that makes them relatable.
I know. It's like you don't need to be a culinary expert to enjoy cooking and make delicious food at home.
Totally.
But they did mention some other favorites, too.
Oh, yeah.
Dan loves hearty, savory meals like tacos and stews.
Okay.
And Vanessa's more into lighter, cleansing blended soups.
Interesting.
So it's like their food choices even reflect their personalities a little bit.
I love how food can be so revealing, right?
Totally. Okay, get ready for some mind-blowing facts.
Okay.
This is where things get really wild.
All right, I'm ready.
Are you ready to dive into the world of nature's weirdest wonders?
I think so.
Okay,
Let's hear it.
prepare yourself.
Okay.
We learned that certain types of turtles
Okay.
breathe through their butts.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Specifically, some species of water turtles have evolved to take in oxygen through their posterior cavities.
Nature is so weird.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
And it doesn't stop there.
Okay.
We also learned about the equally bizarre process of caterpillar liquefaction.
Caterpillar what?
Liquefaction.
Okay.
So basically, when a caterpillar forms a chrysalis, its body breaks down into this, like, soupy substance.
Oh, wow.
It's like a complete internal makeover.
That is wild. So it's like a caterpillar smoothie.
Yeah, basically. From soup to butterfly.
Wow.
Mind-blowing, right?
That's amazing.
Okay, 2 more quick facts that blew my mind.
Okay.
Did you know that albatrosses, those giant seabirds, can maintain long-distance relationships for years?
Wow, really?
They only see their mate once a year.
That's incredible.
I know. And then there's the mantis shrimp, which can punch with the force of a bullet
What?
through bulletproof glass.
No way.
It's crazy.
That's insane. It makes you realize how much we still don't know about the natural world.
Totally. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
From those, like, personal anecdotes about jobs and dream homes to these, like, mind-boggling facts about nature.
Totally.
We've explored some really interesting facets of adulthood, but we're not done yet.
There's more.
There's more.
Okay, I'm ready.
In part 2, we're going to delve into some of Dan and Vanessa's thoughts on money and spending habits,
Okay.
as well as, like, their regrets and lessons learned.
Interesting.
We'll also explore some more practical tips from those English learning channels, focusing on communication skills
Okay.
and vocabulary that can help you navigate everyday situations. So stay tuned.
I'm excited to hear it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into adulthood. We just left off talking about some pretty crazy stuff in the animal kingdom.
I know, right? It's amazing how nature can just like totally blow your mind sometimes.
Totally. Okay, so we're going to shift gears a little bit and get back to Dan and Vanessa.
Okay.
They had some interesting things to say about spending habits and even some purchase regrets.
Oh, yeah. Money management. That's a big part of adulthood for sure.
Oh, for sure. And Dan had a purchase regret story that's almost too good to be true.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
It all started with the pair of expensive headphones, like over $100.
Okay, so that's not unheard of for good headphones, especially if you're into music or, audio quality.
Right. But first of all, he already had perfectly good headphones that he loved.
Okay.
And Vanessa was not on board with this purchase, especially since they didn't have a lot of money at the time.
Yeah, that sounds like a classic impulse buy.
I know, right? We've all been there.
Yeah, that feeling of wanting something new and shiny.
Totally. But sometimes those impulse buys turn out to be great.
Right.
But in Dan's case, not so much. The new headphones actually hurt his ears, so he couldn't even wear them for very long.
Oh, no. So not only was it an unnecessary expense, but it was also like physically uncomfortable.
And it gets worse. They bought the headphones in South Korea, which had a no-return policy.
Oh, no.
So he was stuck with these painful, expensive headphones.
Mm.
But wait, there's more.
Okay.
He brings them home, sets them down, and their cat immediately bites the cord and breaks them.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. It's like a comedy of errors.
It's like something out of a sitcom.
I know. And apparently it was a special kind of cord that couldn't be easily replaced.
Of course it was.
So yeah, a classic tale of a purchase gone wrong, made even worse by feline sabotage.
Wow. You gotta laugh at that point, right?
You really do. Do you have any purchase regrets?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I think we all do.
It's all part of the learning process.
Exactly. We learn from our mistakes.
Okay, now Vanessa's biggest regret is a little more relatable, especially for those of us who frequent coffee shops.
Okay, hit me.
She regrets anytime she buys tea at Starbucks.
Oh, yeah, I feel that. It's like you can make better tea at home for way cheaper.
Exactly. And it's such a good point because sometimes those little expenses,
Yeah.
like a daily coffee or a takeout lunch,
Yeah,
they can really add up over time.
they really do. It's about being mindful of those small purchases.
Okay, ready for another Dan regret.
I'm ready, lay it on me.
This one takes us back to that travel theme. He regrets visiting a turtle rehabilitation center in Florida.
Oh, really? That seems counterintuitive. You'd think a place dedicated to helping turtles would be awesome.
I know, right? But they paid an entrance fee expecting to see turtles up close and personal.
Mm-hmm.
But the turtles were actually in these big swimming pools
Mm-hmm.
and barely visible.
Oh, that's so disappointing. It's like a reminder to do your research before you spend money on experiences.
Totally. Okay, let's move on to some more of those practical tips we found in that English learning channel.
Okay.
They had some great advice on creating a daily routine that supports language acquisition, which I think can be applied to any skill or habit you're trying to build.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about creating structure and consistency, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
So one of the tips they had was to incorporate some form of English content into your day every day.
Every day.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a huge commitment.
Right.
Even just listening to a podcast while you commute or reading a few pages of a book before bed can make a difference.
Little by little, right?
Yeah. And the key is finding something you enjoy so it doesn't feel like a chore.
Yeah.
Remember how they talked about watching videos about sailing?
Yeah.
It's like you can literally learn and practice English through almost any interest you have.
That's so cool.
I know. But they also emphasized that it goes beyond just passively consuming the content.
Okay.
They also encouraged writing in English every day,
Interesting.
even if it's just jotting down thoughts or summarizing something you learned.
It's that active engagement that really helps solidify the learning, right?
Yes. And then their last tip, which I thought was really cool, was to join online communities
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
because it gives you a chance to practice those communication skills and interact with native speakers or other learners.
Real-world practice is so valuable.
Totally. So those are their 3 key tips: daily content,
Okay,
daily writing,
got it.
and daily interaction.
Makes sense.
Seems pretty manageable, right?
Yeah, I think so.
What do you think is the biggest takeaway from those tips?
I think it's that emphasis on active learning and finding ways to integrate language practice into your daily life.
Yes. It's not just about memorizing vocabulary or grammar rules. It's about actually using the language.
Exactly. It's about making it a part of your life, not just a subject you study.
Okay, we've got one more YouTube channel to explore before we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay, bring it on.
And this one's a bit different. It's called Learn English Conversation.
Okay.
And it features these hilarious comedy skits that are great for practicing English.
Oh, I love that.
But they also touch on some really interesting topics related to everyday life.
Cool. Comedy is a great way to learn because it's fun and engaging, right?
Totally. And it makes you remember things more easily.
Exactly. So what kind of skits did they have?
One that really stuck out to me was about a couple at a restaurant.
Okay.
And it highlights those challenges of navigating dietary restrictions and preferences when you're dining out.
Oh, that's so relatable.
I know, right? It can be tricky sometimes. So in this skit, the woman is incredibly picky. Okay. She asks about every ingredient, wants everything without oil or salt, and eventually just orders a large salad for her main course.
While it's played for laughs, it does kind of highlight how food choices can be a source of stress or conflict sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
And her husband is just happily enjoying his meal, completely oblivious to her anxieties.
Oh, that's funny.
It's a classic comedic scenario, but it also kind of speaks to the importance of communication and understanding when it comes to food and relationships.
Being able to clearly communicate your needs and preferences is so important in any relationship.
Another skit from this channel focused on the struggles of staying in shape while also juggling work responsibilities.
Oh, that's a real dilemma for a lot of people.
I know, right? Finding the time and energy to exercise can be tough.
It's all about finding that balance.
So in this skit, the main character tries to incorporate exercise into his workday, like doing jumping jacks in the office, running errands instead of walking, but his boss is not amused.
Oh, no, that's hilarious. It's like a funny take on that whole work-life balance challenge we talked about earlier.
I know, right?
Where do you draw the line between personal well-being and professional responsibilities?
They also had a skit about vacation planning, which reminded me of Dan and Vanessa's dream destination.
Oh, yeah.
In this one, the characters are trying to decide where to travel, but they can't agree on anything.
That's classic vacation planning. Everyone has different priorities, different budgets, different travel styles.
Right. One character wants to relax on the beach, another wants adventure, another wants to see historical sites.
It's like a microcosm of all the different ways people approach travel.
And it just highlights the importance of compromise and flexibility when you're planning a trip, especially when you're traveling with others.
Absolutely. Finding a destination that offers something for everyone is key.
Okay. And lastly, they had a skit about learning etiquette in different cultures, specifically India.
Oh, interesting.
This one was less about adulthood and more about just like navigating social situations with grace.
Yeah, cultural norms and customs can vary so widely around the world.
Totally. It's important to be aware of those differences.
Absolutely.
So in the skit, the main character is being coached on proper Indian etiquette, but he keeps messing up. He accidentally insults a woman, stands too close to people, uses inappropriate gestures.
Oh my God.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it also underscores the importance of being culturally sensitive and doing your research.
Right. You don't want to accidentally offend anyone.
Okay, so that wraps up our exploration of these 3 YouTube channels.
Wow, that was a lot.
We've covered so much ground, from defining adulthood to navigating relationships to embracing cultural differences.
It's fascinating how all these seemingly separate topics are connected.
I know, right? They all contribute to our understanding of what it means to be a human being in the world.
Exactly. To connect with others, to navigate the complexities of life.
Well, we've got one more part to this deep dive.
Okay.
And we're going to explore even more sources that offer different perspectives on adulthood.
I'm ready.
We'll be looking at practical skills, communication tips, vocabulary that can help you navigate various aspects of adult life.
Awesome.
We'll also delve into some more thought-provoking questions about the nature of adulthood itself. Is it a destination or a journey?
Ooh, I like that.
A fixed point in time or an ongoing process of growth and transformation?
That's a great question.
So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive into adulthood. Welcome back, deep divers. We are on the final stretch of our exploration into adulthood.
I know, it's kind of crazy to think about everything we've already covered.
I know, from personal reflections to like mind-blowing nature facts.
It's amazing how it all ties together though, right?
Yeah. So for this last part, we're going to get even more practical.
Okay.
We found some sources that offer tips on communication
Okay.
and like essential vocabulary for navigating different areas of life.
I feel like a lot of adulting comes down to just being able to communicate effectively.
So true. One source focused on phrases you might need in the workplace or in a classroom.
Oh, interesting.
Like those classic questions.
Yeah.
What do you do for a living?
Right.
Where I work it's like the building blocks of those professional conversations.
Yeah, and it's not just about knowing the right words, but like using them confidently, right?
Totally. And this source actually gave examples of how these phrases might play out in real-life scenarios.
Oh, that's helpful.
Which I thought was really cool.
Mm.
Okay, switching gears to something that's pretty much unavoidable these days. Technology.
Right.
Another source we found dove into the language of social media, smartphones, all that digital stuff.
It's kind of crazy how technology has created like a whole new language.
It really has. They covered everything from like basic terms like post,
Right.
comment, like share,
Yeah.
to more specific phrases like how to talk about charging your phone or troubleshooting a tech problem.
Yeah, those everyday things that you don't always think about the vocabulary for.
Totally. Okay, back to the real world for a minute. We also explored a source that focused on vocabulary related to time dates and directions. Those might seem basic,
Right.
but being able to talk about time accurately and give clear directions are actually really important life skills.
Super important.
Yeah. So this source went through days of the week, months of the year, phrases for telling time, asking for directions, all that good stuff.
It's like your language toolkit for just navigating everyday life.
Exactly. All right, back to that all-important topic of food.
Always a good topic.
One source we found was all about the vocabulary of dining and food,
Okay.
which is helpful for so many situations, right?
Right. From ordering at a restaurant.
To talking about your favorite meals.
Yeah, food is such a universal connector.
Totally. This source had phrases for everything, from ordering food, making special requests,
Okay.
to describing flavors, textures, cooking methods.
Wow.
They even had terms like vegan and gluten-free.
Right, which are becoming more and more relevant.
I know. It shows how dietary awareness is becoming such a big part of our culture.
Definitely.
Okay, 2 more sources to go. One was all about vocabulary related to health and fitness.
It's a big one, right? Like taking care of your well-being.
Yeah, physical and mental.
And being able to talk about it, too.
Exactly. This source had a ton of vocabulary. Common health problems, symptoms, phrases for asking for advice,
Okay.
describing treatments, talking about exercise routines, you name it.
It's about being able to advocate for your own health and wellness.
Totally. Okay, last but not least, we looked at a source that focused on the language of making plans
Okay.
and suggesting activities.
That's so important for building relationships.
I know. This source was all about phrases for asking if someone is free,
Yeah.
suggesting different things to do, accepting or declining invitations, and just generally expressing enthusiasm.
Those social interactions are so important.
I know. Wow, what a journey this deep dive has been.
I know, right?
We've covered so much ground.
It's amazing how it's all connected, though.
I know, it really is. And as we wrap up, I keep coming back to that question we posed earlier. Is adulthood a destination or a journey?
It's something to think about, right? Maybe it's not about reaching some fixed point,
Right.
but about continuous learning,
Right.
adapting and evolving.
I love that. Like we're all on this journey together, figuring things out as we go.
Exactly. And the best part is there's always something new to discover,
Yeah.
new experiences to have, and new ways to connect with the world around us.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into adulthood.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We hope you enjoyed it and learned something new along the way.
Definitely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those questions coming.